Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight. Got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Danny and I are just cutting ourselves up here with just some goofies.
Being old. Just being
Getting
old.
old.
Just
Yeah, exactly.
Old.
It's all good though, we woo-sawed. We're back
Everything's
to
fine.
balance.
Deep breath.
Yeah.
Breath. Little trance music, meditation. You'll be all right.
Just another week. It's okay. We got this. Just counting down the days until school starts.
Yeah.
Vacation before that, so that's kind of nice as well.
Yeah.
I actually don't have any first day school responsibilities this year because we'll be in DC.
Oh yeah.
Because
Nice.
that Wednesday is their first day of school. So
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Oh, that's good. And maybe not good. I mean, you missed your first.
It's good.
You all right? You feel okay?
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
it's fine. I'm okay about that. I've experienced enough first days of school.
So they've done enough.
There's really not a lot that's special about it anymore other than,
Yeah.
yay, they're gone for the full day, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's all good. No big deal there.
And that just vacuum of sound when they're gone. It's like, wow, it's so quiet right now.
Yeah. Well, Corey has taken the day off usually, and her and I usually make it a day about us, really. We've
Nice.
done everything from going kayaking together to just going on a hike or just going and getting some getting a meal together and just kind of having a date out of it. So yeah.
Sweet.
When you get to it's like when you get to that point, it's like, all right, it's great. Have fun. See you later. You're the teacher's problem now for a little while.
just give me 6-8 hours. That's all I need.
And not only that, but hey, I know that you're going to behave really well for them because you're out of this house and that's the way that kids are. But at the same time, I heard somebody just the other day say, it's like, you know what? Or you know what? It was Mick on the Country Dads podcast. He said that, I would rather my kids be awesome and amazing out of the house and be turds to me at home than it be the opposite. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what a golden comment. Like, what a great just piece of wisdom. So it's like, all those times where I'm like, I get upset about, kind of the way things are here at the house. Like, at least I know, when the teachers say things like, they're great in school. And it's like, he said in his head, he's like, why don't you come to my house and observe them? Because
they're slightly less polite at home.
Yeah. And you know that the teachers know that already anyways. They're just like, yeah, we know, but we'll take it.
Yeah, they're completely different people. It is just hilarious. My second son is very, very quiet and shy and introverted, and no, not at school. I mean, I talked to one. I'm like, I'm really surprised he's going for the Christmas play. He goes, yeah, it's because he's so shy, and he literally goes, James, like, make sure I'm talking about the right kid. I'm like, yeah. He goes, no, he's very social. Everybody in class loves him. He makes people laugh a lot. And I'm like, who is this child? And why can't I have a piece of him being an over the top entertainer? Come on. No,
You're like, yeah, like, can we have it? Can I be a fly on the wall in your classroom?
I need to just
observe
put
this?
a camera up. I need to see this kid in his
no kidding.
glory.
That's that. You're like, eventually, maybe at some point I'll get to see it. I don't know. Oh yeah, the Jekyll and Hyde of our children. Well, today we're actually going to have one of our speakers on for Home Dad Con, who's actually local to St. Louis. I'm really excited to talk to him because the organization Annie's Hope is what they're coming, what they're a part of. But even more than that, I think as dads or as parents for that matter, we don't always know like how to kind of walk our kids through grief.
Yeah.
And I think that having a professional give some pointers is definitely just a huge benefit.
Hmm.
And this is a topic that we really haven't touched on. Like even in the podcast, I don't feel like we've touched on it, but in Home Dad Con alone, it was funny when I was talking to Corey about this. I said, "Yeah, we're gonna talk to like a grief counselor, like kind of deal, and get things going." And she was like, "Oh, like is she gonna like teach you guys how to like talk to your kids about, you know, how to grieve through the goldfish dying or or that first pet?" And I was like, no, I think this goes a bit deeper than
Yep.
that. But
This
I was like, I'm
is,
sure that those I'm
yeah.
sure that the things that she talks about translates into those other avenues as well, but
Hmm.
maybe not
And
as lighthearted.
it's incredibly valuable, and I'm really glad we're doing it. And I'm glad that the planning committee brought this to us, and that we're going to get to talk to them at the or listen to them at the convention, because it's so very important. And it's something, again, and when we have talked about grief, I think we both agree that it's just something we don't learn about. We're not told about. We just kind of, someone says someone passed away, and you go, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," and that's as far as we've ever been taught. After
Yeah,
that, it's just up in the air. I don't know. And grief is such a deep personal thing. It's so complicated. You imagine that in an adult, much less in a child. And I really am looking forward to it. I do want to I think we should just kind of tell people that this episode may be a little not as lighthearted, like you said. It
yeah,
might be a little sad. It really might. And it might push people to feel certain things, negative emotions, even that they don't want to feel. Because grief is one of those things that is so personal, and
yeah.
it will affect you like who knows what.
Well, and affect
I'm,
you later on in life sometimes too, when you're not even thinking about it. Like I've experienced that, from time to time where like I had
Mhm.
a close friend who passed away when he was 16, and we were best friends. And there are times even at the age of 44 where something will happen and you're just like, oh man, like just this memory floods
Right,
you. And like
right.
I had a little bit of that last year at Home DadCon when we were in Milwaukee, because Joe Saladino and I went to a Cubs game, and my best friend's favorite baseball team was the Cubs. And so it was just so wild.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting in the first baseline seats and everything, and like immediately, like after sitting down for a few minutes, I was like, wow, like this is where his family sat, like when he went to his last game, and like all these things, like I'm just like
Man.
trying to process it through my head. Like I didn't even talk
Right.
to Joe about it because I'm just like having this sort of like, all right, I don't really want to damper what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. We're having a great time, aren't we? Maybe, but I'm also hating everything. Yeah. Because
Exactly.
again, it's so overwhelming. And to think too, when it's someone that young that you knew, the thought is, for me, is who would they be now?
Oh yes, all the
Look at
time.
all the
Yeah.
years in between that we've missed, and what they could have done, or who they could have been, or who knows, they could have met you there,
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, yeah, you're coming into town. That's great. I'll go to the game with you," and all of those things, the possibilities that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not able to experience. It's just overwhelming sometimes.
Well, and I mean, even too, like, just recently we all went through a pandemic, and like that was, its own emotional roller coaster. And some of us lost, close friends or even family members due to COVID. And I know that actually on Monday, so Monday we were supposed to have a friend over for a meal, and then she was going to stay and hang out with the kids, and then Corey and I were going to go to a soccer game, and some other things happened. But Hezekiah doesn't want me to really share about it, so I'll leave it leave it
All
at
right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that she came over and watched the kids because and we went to the game later on or whatever. But she's a widow from COVID. Um,
Mm.
COVID took her husband, and he wasn't much older than me. And we stay in contact with her, but even so, like, it's sometimes tough. Like, I have times where, like, I can be a part of the conversation for so long, and then after a while, like, I leave it up to Corey to talk to her because, 1, she's got, like, the background in it, but 2, she's much deeper into, like, just sort of the restorative side of having
Hmm.
conversations with her, and I think too, like, when grief is involved, it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, there's a point in time where if you're not a part of that conversation and someone else is there taking care of it, there's no reason for you to like stay there and like continue through it. And like I've found different times where like I'm good. Like, I've been here, I've supported for a little while. Like I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna let the other person sort of handle the conversation
Hmm.
from here on out. So
Yeah,
um
I
yeah.
understand. My brother lost his wife during COVID, and it's really interesting to me because I feel like between Marnie and I have a higher EQ, emotional intelligence, and it's more natural for me. That's what that's what I do. It's what I do, here or with sport groups or whatever else. But with my brother, because my wife and his wife were much, much closer than I was with her, that they will sit together and have those long conversations about missing her and who she was and how amazing she was and the funny things she did and all of that far easier than I do, you know, because of that closeness, because of that relationship that they had. And it's years later now. I mean, it's been 3 years and he's just barely gotten to the point where he's looking to maybe date, you know, and it's a really life-changing thing. And like you said, especially with COVID and the millions of people that we lost, um, it's it's awful. And how do we
Yeah.
deal with it? How do we talk about it? How do we express how we're feeling about it? And if we're a child, you imagine my youngest is 9, and if, let's say, I mean, I really hope this never happened to say Marnie or I passed away. How would they deal with that?
Yeah.
How do you get your head around that? So I'm looking forward to this conversation. I am. I'm
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
not, to be honest. I don't want to talk about grief. I'm tired of grief. I'm crying all the time. Come on. But it's something that we really need to understand, especially for our children.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be back here in just a moment with Kaitlyn Paton from Annie's Hope. Just 1 minute. Join us for the Dad's Run 5K in St. Louis 2024, benefiting the Fathers Overcoming Adversity Fund. Brand new to this year is the 1 mile Arch March. For our walkers or runners that want a short option, we got you. Participate in personal or virtually. The live event includes a 5K finisher medal, post-race food, and refreshments. Virtual participants complete their 5K the week of October 18th through the 20th, 2024, with a registration fee covering medal shipping. If you are unsure of how to train for 3.1 miles or think it too daunting, the plan Couch to 5K will get you there in 9 weeks. There's still time to start the journey. Link to this program can be found in any of the posts about the 5K on our social media platforms. Again, the date for the convention is October 17th through the 19th, 2024 in St. Louis, Missouri. In person to register for the 5K is $35. Virtual registration is $40. Sponsored by plantorun.com. To learn more, go to athomedad.org/Dads Run This House 5K. All right, and we are back, and we have our guest with us, Kaitlyn Paton from Annie's Hope. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. We were very excited to talk with you. We know that this is going to be a heavy subject, but we're really excited that you're going to be also presenting at Home Dad Con as a annual meetup that us dads really take a lot of just pride in getting to go to and get a lot out of all the different presenters. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing the information that you're going to be providing during that presentation. And we don't want to get too far into what your presentation is, but we definitely do want to know a little bit more about you and about Annie's Hope. And I've had a chance to sort of go in and look at annieshope.org and kind of just sort of, mill around. Your about page is awesome. There's so much information in there. Um,
Yeah.
but tell us a little bit about you and just kind of, sort of the beginnings of how Annie's Hope came to be.
Sure. So I am program director at Annie's Hope, and my background is in art therapy, and I'm also a licensed professional counselor. And I kind of came to Annie's Hope because I was really focused in wanting to support those who had experiences challenges in their life, whether that's through grief or loss or medical changes. I was working in hospitals in my graduate program. And so it kind of led me down this path of how do we support those after a death? And I found Annie's Hope. And Annie's Hope is a St. Louis nonprofit that provides free grief support to kids and families who've experienced the death of someone in their life. And so we do that through a variety of different programs, which I'm sure we'll kind of get into a little bit more. But yeah, so our programs are focused on kids 3 to 18. And then we also support their caregivers in their life. So we know that helping to support kids is also helping to support the caring adults in their life as well.
Yeah, definitely. I saw where you guys are, a free resource to the folks that come in and use your all the different things that you have going on and getting involved with, just getting help and whatnot. And I was just curious, what what does that look like as far as like I see you got a bunch of different things. Like, is that all stuff that's taking place on site, or are you going to other places around the city to put on these events?
Yeah, so Annie's Hope has 10 different programs. And really,
Hmm.
those 10 programs help to support families from a variety of different perspectives. And so each one has its kind of unique focus. And so, one of the things that we feel like is a strong core belief of ours is to eliminate as many barriers to grief support as possible for families. So, that is why our programmings are offered at no cost to families and kids. And it's also why we provide supports in the community. So some of our programs are community based, where we're going to the kids or to the families to help provide that support. And then some of our programs are offered at our location in Glendale, which is right between Kirkwood, Webster Groves, and the St. Louis area. So those 10 different programs range in content and the focus and structure. So I can share a little bit more about each of those if that would be helpful. Yeah. So we offer, so some of our programs are offered for the full family. So our family support group program is offered for the whole family. So kids 3 to 18, and then their caring adults attend with them. And those are 8-week groups that are hosted at our site in Glendale. And those meet once a week for those 8 weeks, and they're closed groups. So the families that start with us week 1 end with us week 8. And that's so that the families can get to know each other and get to support each other and build that trust in their support groups. And then we divide them by developmental age because we know that kids grieve, but we know that it looks different depending on their developmental age. And so kids who are preschool age will be with other preschoolers, school age will be with other school agers, and then teens would be within their teen groups. And then
Yeah.
the adults have their own support groups in that program. So we run 10 concurrent groups in one session of family support groups.
Wow. That's a lot. That is a tremendous workload, but I really understand too that is the reason you do it in those ways. Because you said like developmental ages, kids will act and grieve in different ways. I love that to hear that you have it for parents as well, the caregivers of those children, because I know that's one of those things that I've never learned about, never been taught about. We didn't talk about grief growing up. In my youngest life, I lost my great grandmother, and that was it. And it was just this happened. And that was the extent of it, at the point. And since then, I have lost other people, and I've learned to go find a support group, find somebody that understands. But I really love that you have it set up for developmental ages because of those specific needs. I mean, we talk about, because we're, both full-time parents. Well, Brock used to be, he's a quitter, but no, he went and got a job. But the reality of how we parent our kids at different ages is because of, where they're at. You don't talk to a 3-year-old the same way you would talk to a 10-year-old even. So some of the things that I'd like to talk about are the grief behaviors of children at different stages. And again, this is probably an encyclopedia's worth of information that you would bring to the table, but just some of
Danny, what's an encyclopedia?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. I'm old. But the different ways that kids, let's say as a very young child, and then as a preteen, then as a teenager, the things that you typically see that your support groups have to deal with their behaviors and how they act or react to those things. Again, we don't want to cover all of your information here, but I think it'd be good to have an idea of what kind of things that you're dealing with, or we would expect to deal with if our children were dealing with grief.
Yeah, absolutely. So, part of the adult groups, as you mentioned, is helping parents to understand developmentally how kids grieve. So, and they always want to know what is normal? Is this normal? Should I be concerned? And so we help them kind of navigate that of, providing some support. And yeah, these are behaviors that we see in a lot of different kids and families. And then getting that peer support from others who are seeing that in their kids too, and how do you help support one another through that. And so our adult groups have those two focuses. The one focus is on providing a space for them to process their own grief experiences and their own grief support. And then the other space is to help support them with understanding how kids grieve and how they can help support their kids. So the structure of our groups based on the age of the kids in those groups is quite different. So for our preschoolers, which are our youngest grievers that we serve, are 3 to 5 years old. And in that group, we understand that kids that age, their attention span across the board, not just with grief, but everywhere, is quite small and focused, right?
Yep.
And so we have to take that same approach when we're working with grief. Our groups are about an hour and 40 minutes long. There's no way a preschooler is going to be able to sit in grief for an hour and 40 minutes. So what we're doing is introducing play and then little snippets of grief activities that they can do. And so what you'll hear when I'm talking about all of our programs with kids is that they're all activity based. So we use art, we use games, we use crafts, we use movement, dance, music to help kids express their grief. And so sometimes when people think about a support group, they think about sitting in a circle and talking. And we do have circles and we do have talking, but we also have a lot of play and a lot of creativity and engaging in that way. And so our preschool room is kind of set up so that it looks like a playroom. There is a kitchenette, there's a puppet show area, because we know that kids are working through their grief through their play. So that's an example of how preschool, even just the structure of the space, is set up quite different than our older school age kids. And so, what we see in preschool age is that they can move from heavy grief topics to light topics quite quickly. And then that's quite different when you're working with teens, right? So
Oh,
our
yeah.
teens, peer connection is so important for teens, and it is such a part of their day-to-day experience. And so something like a big change in their life, like a death, can make them feel different from their peers. And so we see a lot of changes in those peer relationships. Maybe they're not talking about the death with their peers because they don't want to stand out. Or maybe they've found a shift in changing of peer relationships because they're connecting with those who are supportive and, distancing themselves from maybe those who are not supportive. So in those teen groups, it's really about building that trust and support among the group members, because we know that peer connection can be so helpful at any age, but it just seems really crucial at the teen age too.
Yeah, we were talking about, the fact that, we are all coming out of a pandemic and just, a lot of folks lost loved ones, just really kind of out of nowhere in some ways, just with, the COVID, the way it worked. And I was just kind of wondering like what that kind of looked like for your organization, as far as, was there a pretty big uptick in that? And, what did that look like?
Yeah, there were a few changes that we experienced specifically from the pandemic. So, one of the things is that we had deaths by COVID, that families were grieving those deaths. And so that was for a long period after the pandemic kind of opened up a little bit and we were able to have groups. We had groups that almost all the adults in that group were experiencing a death related to COVID. And so that was a change for our organization, and that was not a occurrence before the pandemic. And then we also saw changes in behaviors and just like social interactions with kids. And, they spent many years not having those social interactions and being disengaged. And so just having a little bit more, support with behaviors and in the group settings, and adding a little bit more support from our facilitator standpoint to help ensure that the group helps to build those connections. And then the other thing is related to our camp program, which we haven't talked about yet, but Annie's Hope offers 2 camps. So one week is for Camp Courage, which is 6 to 18 or 6 to 11. And then our teen program, which is Camp Courage Teens, is 12 to 18. And so that's an overnight Monday through Friday camp for kids. And so it is a fun camp experience. It's an opportunity for kids who are grieving to be able to have that typical camp experience, while also being among kids that understand the pain of grief, and adults who are willing to talk with them about it and connect with them about it.
Yeah.
And so what we saw after the pandemic is we had a drop in our younger kids. So our 6 and 7 year olds, we had less applying for camp right out of the pandemic, because parents were a little, kids were not comfortable as much at leaving home for that period of time. And I think parents were a little less comfortable with that with the younger kids. But we're kind of seeing that trend swing back to where we are having cabins of 6-year-olds again. So that is kind of a change that we've seen over the last year or so with our camp program too, going back
As
to
a
having those younger campers.
As a former summer camp counselor, I was really excited to see that you had a program like that, because yeah, like I know the benefits of being able to go to camp like that and really just have opportunities to connect with other kids, and also to just, I don't know, there's like this interesting vulnerability that comes out in kids when they are sort of outside of their normal environment, and I was really excited. I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man." I was like, if I was younger, I would definitely be like, "Hey, like I'll be a camp counselor. That'd be awesome."
Right. Right.
Well, we have camp counselors of all ages, so
Oh,
just
okay.
throwing it out there.
There's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Seeing that we're, of course, the official podcast for the National At Home Dad Network, we're typically talking to and about dads. And one of the things that we say regularly on our show is that every man needs a mentor and a men's group. And we bounce back and forth about that idea, about basically just needing one person when things are getting overwhelming, stressful, or what have you, one person that you can go to and say, this is what's going on, and drop it. And all they have to say is, wow, that sucks. And it's a moment in your life where you go, okay, all right, I can handle this now. So the idea of having a camp for teenagers where they can make those connections, which is so hard for, I think, any teenager, you're just in that place where you're just so very awkward, and you're awesome and amazing in so many ways, but you can't express it, or you can't show it, or you just feel out of place or weird because, well, I really like soccer. Does everybody like soccer? The big things. But when it comes to grief, having a place where you could go, especially as a camp for a week, overnights where you can still have fun. Let's go swimming, or let's make s'mores and all the things that you do at camp, but then also have people that you can lean on, whether your peers or the counselors, older people that you can say, look, this is how I feel right now. Why? What's going on? Or at the very least, have someone else say, yeah, me too. I can't express how wonderful I can imagine that support must be for the people that you help. And that's a fantastic thing that you have going, especially because it's varying age groups, but for teenagers specifically, because they're in that place where they're not quite an adult, they're definitely not a child anymore. And to be able to find people that they can lean on is wonderful. I think that's one of probably the greatest things you've said so far. Just to give that to them is an amazing gift.
Yeah, one of we always get to hear stories about camp experiences and how kids connected. And one of the stories that came out of camp recently was that there was a cabin of teens that are now having their own like sleepovers and hangouts outside of camp. So they didn't know each other at all before camp started, and now they're hanging out together. And a group of them also came to one of our other programs, which is our teen retreats. And so our teen retreats are more of an intimate setting than our Camp Courage is. So teen retreats is a Friday to Sunday overnight retreat just for teens. And it's a small group. So at max, we accept 12 teens for the weekend. And it's more grief focused. So I mentioned how camp is really about that fun camp experience, but we're providing grief support throughout the week. Teen Retreat is an opportunity for teens to take a step back from their everyday hustle and bustle, because being a teen just in and of itself is hard. And so it's a chance for them to take a step back from their everyday and connect with teens who get it and focus on their grief processing and support. And so we do a variety of different grief activities with them throughout the weekend. And then we also mix in fun camp activities as well, like hiking, and the site that we're currently at has horseback riding. And so providing them with opportunities to experience something that maybe they don't get to experience every day. But those connections that you were talking about is just one of those things that like bring me joy when I get to hear about those outcomes from camp or from teen retreat, and those built connections where they're coming back and excited to see their friends in our programs that they met. So
Yeah.
that's really a great experience.
Yeah,
So
that's
Annie,
awesome.
so Annie's Hope is based out of St. Louis. We have dads that listen to this podcast from all over the country, some even all over the world, just depends. But I was just kind of wondering, like, do you have connections with other, grief organizations like yours in other states? Is that something that, like, would somebody need to, or would they be able to go to your website and find that, or is that something that is somewhere, is there a better place to go look for that? Like, I just kind of was curious because, like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I know of some other like counseling places here in Cincinnati, but I don't know that they specifically are just focused on grief itself. So what does that look like for your organization?
Yeah, so anybody is always welcome to reach out to us. We are one of the program supports that we always provide is anybody can call with questions, or if they feel like they're in kind of like this came up, what do I do? How do I support my kiddos? So they're always welcome to call us. And there is lots of organizations across the US that provide support similar to what we do. And that network is a really great network to be a part of, in that there are other grief centers. In St. Louis, we're the only ones that provide the support in the way that we do it. But if you are living outside of the St. Louis area, I would encourage you to go to the National Alliance for Children's Grief organization. They have a search bar. So it's nacg.org. and they have a search bar in there where you can look up grief support in your area. So they do it by state, and then they also do it by zip code. And so you can find different organizations and different camps and other supports that provide grief support across the United States. And they're a really great resource tool. They have a lot of resources online that can be helpful in supporting children's grief.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even know that existed, so that's awesome. And
Right.
I'll be putting that in the show notes because yeah, you were talking about that. I'm like, I've never heard of that before. Okay, like I think that that's something too that um the different fatherhood organizations that are trying to help, different dads or whatever, like, we're always looking for different resources to be able to put on our websites. And I think that, your organization and the national organization, that kind of stuff is definitely things that I feel like if you're doing any kind of parenting advocacy, is a website that probably should get added to that so that folks can find it. Because I feel like parents, when they get in this situation, if it's a loss of a sibling or maybe just a close relative or something like that, they're kind of at a loss for what to look for. And then if it's somebody else, like the same kind of deal. So being able to have that kind of at your fingertips is just a huge benefit. So thank you for that information.
Yeah. Well, and grief is hard too. When you're grieving, it's hard to be able to navigate all the other components of someone else's grief, or supporting your kids grief. And I think a lot of times I hear parents say, like, I don't have time to grieve, I'm supporting my kids. But it's so important that they find the support for themselves too. So helping to find those resources, making them easy to access, is really important in this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I
So
agree 100%. That's all I got.
yeah.
It's all good. No, I was just, so we're kind of coming to the end of everything. We're at this point where we're, weeks away from finally coming into St. Louis and home dad con and that kind of thing. Um, and is this something that, have you been able to have these kind of presentations with other parents, like in this kind of setting before? Or is this new to you guys? Like what is sort of your interaction been like with parent organizations?
Yeah, so we have had some connections with parent organizations before. I will say that this is my first like con that I've gone to and presented at, but we do a lot of children's grief education throughout the St. Louis community. So that is one of our core goals, is to helping break the taboo topic of death and dying, and helping to
Hmm.
support families and raising awareness to how kids grieve. And the more opportunities we get for that, the stronger our community will be in helping to support grieving kids. So we do a lot of these kind of conversations with parents. We do speaking engagements with school staff, where we provide educational training on how to support kids in their schools. We also do kind of classroom education with kids in the school. So we recently did one on how to be a good friend to somebody who's grieving, where we met with some fifth graders and got to share a little bit about that with them. We do back to school events, as well as speaking at different just organizations to share about how to support grieving kids. So it's a familiar topic, and getting to talk with you all. But I will say that it's really nice to be able to talk with dads, because there is this kind of stigma that's out there that expressing feelings in the male population,
Hmm.
and that it's done differently, and that's okay. But as you mentioned earlier, having those mentors and peers and that are going through similar things can be really helpful, especially with our male kiddos and our male adults that are grieving, and how
Hmm.
do they grieve, and finding that connection and support is really important. And that's one of the things that we always are looking for as male volunteers, because we think that that mentorship is so helpful, and being able to show that it's okay to grieve, and that everybody does it differently. and it's okay to be emotional as a male. And so
Yes.
we want to have that, those opportunities for kids to see other males, adults who have gone through grief, experienced it, and are able to talk about it and express their feelings about it. So it's a really great opportunity to chat with you all and be able to come to the Home Dad Con.
I think you'll find that our dads, our members are very open about their emotions. Not every single person, obviously, but just the reality of what we do all day with our kids, you have to learn to model good emotions. You have to learn to get past that, that strong silent type, or the only emotion you're allowed to have as a man is anger, and that's what we're taught and what we've been taught for generations. And I think you'll find, I think you'll be surprised at how open our dads are about things like this. And it's really something that we look to try to promote that in other organizations and tell people, yeah, well, it's okay. You can laugh, you can cry, you can even get upset. Those are all valid things. And as a man, you need to be able to show them, So I think you'll really enjoy our convention. Of course, it's my favorite convention, so I'm a little biased, but I think you'll really enjoy the way our members will respond to your presentation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Kaitlyn, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking with us today. It really has been informative, and I think that, it's something that a lot of guys are going to be interested in. Um, I will definitely in the show notes have everything for people to be able to check out your website and the national organization, that kind of thing as well. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting to meet you in person and just getting to hear the rest of your presentation. But thank you so much again for coming on the show, and we'll see you in just a few weeks.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you both.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.